Hello, we are Group 6, and for our final project, we decided to do a comparison of COVID-19 waves in Manitoba. First, a brief history. COVID-19's first known case appeared in December 2019 in Wuhan, China. The first known case in Manitoba appeared in March 13th, 2020. As of November 2021, there have been over 60,000 cases in Manitoba alone, and over 250 million cases worldwide. The pandemic can be divided into a series of waves. A wave is defined as a period of increase of COVID-19 cases followed by a period of rest. Throughout the pandemic, Manitoba has gone through 3 waves and is currently undergoing a 4th. On the right here, we can see a chart showing visually the 4 waves, with the first wave being that small blip at the start, the second and third being right in the middle, and that 4th one on the rise. The purpose of our project is to determine social and economical challenges created by COVID-19 specifically in Manitoba, and to do so we will examine and compare selected attributes between the 3 completed COVID-19 waves. First, the datasets used in our project. From Open Data Manitoba, we gathered data on cases and vaccination, that being daily cases, daily recoveries, daily deaths, current active cases, general hospitalization data, daily first and second doses, and cumulative first and second doses. To gauge how well the province responded to COVID-19, we also gathered data on the public health orders. The public health orders were later simplified into the provincial response levels in August 2020. From the Manitoba Pandemic Response System, we can see we have 4 levels, green being a limited risk, yellow, caution, orange, restricted, and red, a critical state. The colored provincial response levels can be further identified and broken down into the following: gather restrictions, personal and long-time care facilities, K-12 schools, child care facilities, retail and personal services, restaurants and beverage rooms, recreation facilities, casino facilities and theaters, indoor mask mandates, and Manitoba travel, quarantine, and isolation. Also gathered data on COVID-19 variants that appeared in Manitoba, that being Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Kappa, and Delta, and uncategorized when the data is unavailable for a specific case. Lastly, we gathered some miscellaneous data from Statistics Canada, that being monthly unemployment rate, the total monthly non-resident travelers, and monthly Canadians returning abroad to take a look at the economic side of the pandemic. There are a few issues that we ran into while working with our datasets. First, data from different sources would have different start dates. For example, general Manitoba COVID-19 data starts in March 2020, while the variant data starts in February of 2021. Some data also just didn't exist for some waves. For example, there's no vaccinations or variants in the first wave, and the second wave didn't have data on vaccination until near the middle of the wave. Another issue we ran into was different data sets had vastly different formats. So to deal with this and make it easier to work with, we first had to pre-process our data. In our data pre-processing phase, we converted cumulative variant data to daily variant data to better match with our daily cases data. We then calculated the daily ratio of each variant relative to total daily cases. This helped to see which one is predominant. Afterwards, we converted our daily cases into weekly cases. This helped account for delays in reporting and helped in finding frequent patterns and statistically meaningful results. Afterwards, we also normalized our data from a range of 0 to 1, which made it much easier to find trends in the data. Lastly, we converted every numeric attribute into 3 discrete values: low, medium, and high, low being any value below the 33rd percentile, and high being anything above the 67th percentile. Using discrete values made it easier to work with in finding frequent patterns. Lastly, our large dataset was divided into three smaller datasets, one for each wave. Wave 1 being March 10th, 2020 to May 1st, 2020. Wave 2 being September 1st, 2020 to March 1st, 2021. And Wave 3 being April 1st, 2021 to August 1st, 2021. We have opted to ignore looking in between waves to look at the most meaningful data, and we are ignoring the fourth ongoing wave to avoid skewing our data. Next, the process. Firstly, we mapped each attribute to a unique identifier to make it easier to work with our algorithms. A Python script was written to accomplish this, and in the end we had 99 different identifiers in total. Next, we used two different methods for examining our data. Firstly, the fpclose to generate closed item sets so that we could see frequent patterns and the support of said patterns. We also used a time series analysis to examine the changes in values over time. Next, our analysis of Wave 1 from March 10th, 2020 to May 1st, 2020, lasting 8 weeks. Relative to waves 2 and 3, there were very few daily cases. We could see from the closed item set generated by fpclose that we had a support of 100% for low daily cases, low daily recoveries, low daily deaths, low ICU and non-ICU hospitalizations, low non-hospitalized active cases, and a low positivity rate. These low numbers are likely due in part to Manitoba's strong initial response to the pandemic. Very early on, Manitoba entered a state of emergency and had public health orders put in place. Recreation facilities were closed, and other public facilities had reduced gathering sizes. We also saw significant social and economical impact. Unemployment rose from 6.7% all the way to 11.3%, and travel was significantly reduced from over 13,000 to just under 1,600 non-resident travelers. Next, our analysis on Wave 2, being from September 1st, 2020 to March 1st, 2021, lasting 26 weeks, being the longest wave. At the peak of Wave 2 in early December, we see high hospitalization rates and recoveries, but also high deaths and unemployment rates. At the same time, vaccines were starting to be introduced, and in the following weeks, several categories, such as daily cases, deaths, and even hospitalizations, decreased. Before the peak of Wave 2, during the week of November 10th to November 16th, 2020, Manitoba entered the provincial response level of red. Recreational facilities were closed, and there were greatly reduced gathering sizes. By observation, we saw that the restrictions had less of an effect on containing the transmissions of COVID-19. This is likely due to the vagueness of some health orders and the length of the pandemic. People were probably sick of restrictions and violating them. For example, there was a general increase in travelers returning from abroad. Next, Wave 3, from April 1st, 2021 to August 1st, 2021, lasting 18 weeks. At the peak of Wave 3 in May 2021, we saw high daily cases, ICU hospitalizations, test positivity rates, daily tests, and first doses of the vaccine. Several categories reached an all-time high. Weekly cases at over 3,000, ICU hospitalizations over 400, weekly tests over 25,000, and test positivity rates at nearly 14%. Despite this, deaths proportionate to new cases were significantly lower. This is likely due to the vaccine. Wave 3 is where a majority of the population were vaccinated. 89,079 first doses of vaccine were administered in a single week, and 167,601 second doses were administered in the week of June 24th to June 30th, 2021 alone. Manitoba entered the provincial response level of red at the very beginning of Wave 3 and did not return to orange until the end of June. Unemployment rates dropped from 7.4% to 6.1%. Wave 3 is where the variant data became available. Early on, we can see that the alpha variant was the dominant strain, and later on we can see an increase in reported cases of the delta variant. Unfortunately, we cannot infer much information from this, as a vast majority of cases were uncategorized. This is possibly due to the strain on hospitals. Lastly, a comparison between the three waves. The largest difference between the three waves was vaccine doses. We saw as more of the population got vaccinated, we see a faster decline in daily cases. Calculating the slope of each wave's decline, that being the percentile decrease, we get, in wave 1, a slope of 0.006, in wave 2, a slope of 0.05, and wave 3, a slope of 0.07. Another profound effect of the vaccine is seen in hospitalization and deaths. In wave 3, we had a significantly lower mortality rate compared to waves 1 and 2, where wave 1 had a 2.16% mortality rate, wave 2 at 2.93, and wave 3 at nearly a third of that at just 1.02%. Also, while Wave 3 had a much higher proportion of ICU hospitalization than Wave 2, it also had a significantly lower proportion of non-ICU hospitalizations, showing that people were generally more prepared for COVID-19. Next, examining the effect of the provincial response levels. As provincial response levels did not exist in Wave 1, by examining the public health orders at the time, we have generalized it to be red the entire time. We can see that there is a consistent decline in cases shortly after transitioning to red within a few weeks. We see that clearly the restrictions are having some beneficial effect. The majority of every wave was spent in the provincial response level of red. For example, in wave 3, we see that 2/3 of it was spent in this phase. We also notice that unemployment was at its highest during these periods of time, showing that unemployment rises as the restrictions get more severe. And finally, the conclusions of our project. From our findings, we saw that vaccination had the largest impact on daily cases and mortality rate. Restrictions had the biggest social and economical effect, where severe restrictions had huge impact on unemployment rates. We believe that possibly having stricter enforced restrictions might shorten the amount of time that the province is in red and lessen the negative effects of the restrictions.